On May 14, 2022, a Saturday afternoon unfolded with the gentle rhythm of ordinary life. But in the span of just 10 minutes, this day would be violently redefined by a live-streamed act of hate, changing a community forever. This is the story of what happened, minute by minute. The afternoon began like any other in the Maston Park neighborhood of Buffalo, New York. It's a community with deep roots, a place where generations have built their lives. The sun was out, casting a warm glow as residents went about their weekend routines, completely unaware that their world was about to be fractured. The air was filled with the sounds of distant lawnmowers and children's laughter, the very picture of American suburban peace. At the heart of this neighborhood stood the Tops Friendly Markets on Jefferson Avenue. As the afternoon progressed, the parking lot steadily filled with cars. Shoppers arrived to pick up ingredients for Saturday night dinner, stock up on essentials for the week ahead, or simply grab a birthday cake for a family celebration. Hey everyone, quick check-in. Where are you watching from? Please subscribe and like to support the channel. Thank you. This was so much more than just a grocery store. It was the community's living room. For years, this part of East Buffalo was what's known as a food desert, an area where access to fresh, affordable groceries was severely limited. When this Tops Market opened, it was a landmark achievement, a promise fulfilled, and a vital institution in a predominantly black neighborhood. It was a place of connection, where you were guaranteed to run into a friend, a neighbor, or a former teacher. Inside, the familiar rhythm of a busy supermarket played out. The low hum of refrigerators, the cheerful beeps of scanners at the checkout, and the murmur of casual conversations created a comforting soundscape. Employees, many of whom were local residents themselves, stocked shelves and kept the store running smoothly, greeting familiar faces by name. For many, this weekly ritual of shopping and socializing was a thread that stitched the community fabric together. In these aisles, life felt safe, predictable, and ordinary. This feeling of normalcy felt absolute. There was no premonition, no warning sign of the horror that was rapidly approaching. But while this peaceful scene unfolded, a dark plan was reaching its conclusion. An 18-year-old Peyton Gendron had just completed a drive of over 3 hours, crossing the state to reach this exact place. His destination was not random. He had deliberately chosen the 14208 zip code after researching demographics online, targeting it for its high concentration of black residents. His goal was to kill as many black people as possible. His hateful plan was chillingly meticulous. He had studied the store's layout, chosen the busiest time on a Saturday for maximum impact, and had even made a reconnaissance trip beforehand. He was armed with a semi-automatic rifle, protected by body armor, and wearing a helmet camera, intending to broadcast his racist terror to the world. As he pulled into the parking lot, the two worlds, one of peaceful community, the other of calculated hate, were about to collide. At 2:31 p.m., the Saturday routine shattered. The afternoon calm of the Tops Friendly Market on Jefferson Avenue was about to be irrevocably broken by a meticulously planned act of hate. A lone vehicle pulled into the parking lot, its driver moving with a disturbing sense of purpose. He deliberately chose a parking spot near the front entrance, a strategic position that offered a clear line of sight and immediate access to the store's entryway. For several minutes, he sat in his car, a final chilling pause before unleashing terror. Inside the vehicle, he made his final preparations. He adjusted a helmet-mounted camera, checking the connection to ensure his actions would be live-streamed. His intent was not merely to kill, it was to perform for an audience. He sought to broadcast the atrocity to a global network of extremists, hoping his violence would serve as a dark inspiration for others who shared his hateful ideology. The live stream was a critical component of his plan, designed to amplify the terror far beyond the physical confines of the supermarket. Then, he stepped out, clad in tactical gear and holding a military-style rifle. His movements were methodical, devoid of hesitation. The first shots cracked through the air before he even entered the building. The rapid, high-velocity reports echoed across the parking lot, a sound so alien to a Saturday afternoon that it initially caused confusion. Was it fireworks? A car backfiring? That fleeting uncertainty turned to raw panic as people realized the horrifying truth. These were not random noises. They were the distinct, terrifying sounds of rifle shots. In an instant, the mundane ritual of grocery shopping became a desperate scramble for survival. The familiar aisles filled with everyday goods transformed into a landscape of chaos and terror. Shoppers dropped their baskets and ran for cover, their minds struggling to process the unfolding nightmare. Some dropped to the ground, crawling behind checkout counters or hiding in the narrow spaces between shelves. The shooter moved with a chilling calm, advancing methodically through the parking lot and toward the entrance, firing at anyone in his path. Each shot was deliberate, a punctuation mark in a manifesto of hate brought to life. Outside the Tops Friendly Market, the difference between life and death was measured in seconds. The assault in the parking lot was swift, merciless, and meticulously planned. On this ordinary Saturday, the mundane act of running errands was about to be shattered by an eruption of targeted violence. The first person he shot was a woman loading groceries into her car. Before anyone could process the sound of gunfire, he continued his attack, moving with a chilling sense of purpose. His own live stream, broadcast to the world, captured his every movement as he turned the parking lot into a killing field. In a matter of seconds, 4 people were struck in rapid succession. There was no time for escape, no opportunity for defense. The attack was so sudden, so brutal, that shoppers inside were only just beginning to register the chaos unfolding at the entrance. Among the first victims were pillars of the community, individuals whose lives were defined by kindness and service. Margus D. Morrison, a 52-year-old father of 3 and a beloved school bus aide, was simply picking up snacks for a family movie night. Deacon Hayward Patterson, 67, was a fixture in the neighborhood's church community. He ran a taxi service, often giving free rides to those who couldn't afford them. He was known for helping fellow shoppers carry their groceries, a small act of generosity that defined his character. He was waiting in his car, helping another person, when he was killed. Celestine Cheney, a 65-year-old grandmother of 6 and a resilient breast cancer survivor, had come to the store with her sister. Her simple mission that day was to buy strawberries to make her favorite shortcake. Her life, full of love and strength, was stolen in an instant. Also outside was Aaron Salter Jr., a 55-year-old retired Buffalo police officer working as a security guard. Hearing the gunfire, he immediately drew his weapon, ready to protect the innocent lives inside. 3 people were killed, and 1 was wounded before the shooter even crossed the threshold. It was an unmistakably targeted massacre, a hateful prelude to the terror he was about to unleash. With chilling precision, he stepped through the automatic doors, his focus now on the dozens of terrified shoppers and employees still inside. He stepped through the doors and panic washed through the aisles. He advanced past checkout, deeper into the store. Frozen disbelief broke into a terrified scramble. People hid behind shelves, in storage, even inside dairy cases. He navigated with a familiarity earned from prior reconnaissance. His helmet feed showed a first-person sweep past weekly specials and fresh produce. A store employee dropped to the floor. The shooter wounded them and moved on. He bypassed a white person, reportedly apologizing, evidence reinforcing his racist motive. For those trapped, minutes stretched into an eternity.
There's a shooter in the store. I love you.
Amid pure survival, hope flickered from the sirens outside. Aaron Salter Jr., 55, retired Buffalo police lieutenant, was the store's security guard. He moved from the parking lot to confront the threat inside. With decades of experience, he did not hesitate. His shots were accurate. 1 struck center mass, but heavy armor absorbed it. The disparity in firepower and protection was devastating. The gunman returned fire with a semi-automatic rifle. Salter was struck and killed, dying a hero to save others. His courage created seconds for others to hide or flee. He was praised as a protector, his loss a profound blow. With security neutralized, the gunman resumed his deadly patrol. The murder of a decorated officer was broadcast in real time. With Salter fallen, the gunman moved unopposed. Everyday items, bread, milk, birthday cake, testified to ordinary lives interrupted. Catherine Cat Massey, 72, a writer and community activist, was killed. Pearl Young, 77, a substitute teacher and missionary who ran a food pantry, murdered. Roberta A. Drury, 32, had moved to help care for her brother. Ruth Whitfield, 86, mother of Buffalo's retired fire commissioner, stopped after visiting her husband. He fired toward the back, dairy coolers and a stockroom where people hid. Inside, the rampage lasted only minutes. In that brief span, 13 people were shot. The aisles became a scene of heartbreak. His relentless advance left a scar the community will carry forever. 911 calls flooded dispatch at 2:31 p.m. Units were en route within a minute. First officers arrived at 2:33 p.m., following active shooter training. Their swift response disrupted a plan to continue down Jefferson Avenue. Realizing he was cornered, the gunman returned toward the entrance. As officers converged, he stepped outside still holding the rifle. Police ordered him to drop the weapon. He raised the barrel to his chin. Officers used de-escalation, urging surrender. Slowly, he lowered the rifle, then removed helmet and armor. He complied, dropped to his knees, and was taken into custody. The arrest occurred around 2:36 p.m., about 5 minutes after the first 911 call, without further shots fired. With the gunman in custody, the full scope of tragedy came into focus. 10 lives taken: parents, grandparents, siblings, friends. Shock gave way to grief, anger, and disbelief. Authorities confirmed a racially motivated attack fueled by white supremacist ideology. As the sun set, Buffalo mourned. Though quickly removed, the live stream spread. Before the verdicts and headlines, one question remained central. How does federal justice answer an act of hate at this scale? The machinery of federal justice, often deliberate and unhurried, has ground forward in the case of the Buffalo Tops supermarket shooting. This process, separate from state-level proceedings, operates under its own set of laws and carries its own profound consequences. In a recent and significant development, a federal judge has firmly denied a motion from the defense to remove the death penalty as a possible outcome. The defense had argued against it on constitutional grounds, but the court was not persuaded. This decision marks a critical juncture in the legal saga that began on a bright May afternoon in 2022, a day that shattered a community's sense of peace. The ruling ensures that the federal prosecution will proceed with its most severe potential punishment on the table, setting the stage for a complex and emotionally charged trial scheduled to begin in September. The court's action signals that, despite a resolution in state court where the shooter received a life sentence without parole, the federal government's pursuit of its own form of justice remains undeterred. This dual sovereignty doctrine allows for separate prosecutions without violating double jeopardy protections. The case is now moving toward a definitive, high-stakes confrontation in a federal courtroom. This case has captured the nation's attention not merely for the brutality of the crime, which left 10 people dead, but for the stark and undeniable clarity of its motive. The attack was a calculated act of racial hatred, meticulously planned to target black shoppers. It was a fact the perpetrator documented and broadcast himself, leaving behind a manifesto of his extremist beliefs. The federal government's involvement underscores the gravity of this dimension, as its charges are built upon hate crime statutes designed to address violence aimed at entire communities. These laws recognize that such crimes inflict a unique and broader harm. The recent court order, therefore, is more than a procedural step. It is a reaffirmation of the federal system's role in prosecuting acts that terrorize and target people based on their race. As the legal process continues, each ruling and motion becomes part of a larger narrative about how the American legal system confronts extremist violence and its devastating consequences for victims, their families, and the very fabric of society. Next, who he was and how the state responded. The perpetrator at the center of this tragedy is Peyton Gendron, who was just 18 years old. He drove for hours to carry out his attack. On May 14, 2022, he entered the Tops Friendly Market in a predominantly black neighborhood on Buffalo's east side and opened fire, killing 10 innocent black people, injuring 3 others. His actions were not random, but the culmination of a descent into racist online extremism. He meticulously planned the assault, live-streamed the violence, and left behind a manifesto filled with hateful ideology. His stated goal was to kill as many black people as possible, making the racial motive unmistakable. In the New York state courts, the path to conviction was swift. Faced with overwhelming evidence, including his own digital confessions and plans, Gendron pleaded guilty to state charges. 1 count, domestic terrorism motivated by hate. 10 counts, first-degree murder. 3 counts, attempted murder. In February 2023, survivors and family members confronted Gendron in a raw, emotional sentencing hearing, their statements of grief and anger filling the courtroom. 2 systems, 1 pursuit of accountability, and how they diverge. In the state proceedings, the judge imposed New York's maximum penalty, life in prison without the possibility of parole. This sentence ensured he would spend the rest of his natural life behind bars, a form of absolute finality for many under state law. But the state's judgment was not the end of the legal road. The U.S. Department of Justice filed its own separate charges, 27 counts in total. These included federal hate crimes resulting in death and serious firearms offenses. The federal decision to seek the death penalty added a new, profound dimension to the case, raising the ultimate stakes. This dual-track approach reframes the crime not just as a local tragedy, but as an offense against the entire nation and the civil rights it guarantees. In the methodical and adversarial process of a federal criminal case, the defense is obligated to challenge the prosecution at every possible point. They filed a barrage of pretrial motions aimed at weakening the government's case before a jury would ever hear it. They attacked the indictment itself, arguing the grand jury that issued it did not reflect a fair cross-section of the community, specifically citing a statistical underrepresentation of Black and Hispanic citizens. It was a fundamental challenge that goes to the very heart of the Sixth Amendment right to an impartial jury. They also moved to dismiss the federal firearms counts on technical grounds, and mounted a direct constitutional challenge to the government's pursuit of a capital sentence. After months of reviewing extensive written arguments and hearing from both sides, U.S. District Judge Lawrence J. Villardo issued his rulings. He denied the motion to dismiss the death penalty, allowing the government to proceed with its capital case. He also denied the bid to dismiss the firearms charges, keeping the indictment fully intact. With these crucial decisions made, he set a tentative federal trial date of September 8, 2025. The path forward involves a lengthy and complex jury selection process, followed by the trial itself and a potential penalty phase. Up next, where this trial should happen. The defense moved to shift the federal trial from Buffalo to New York City, arguing a fair, impartial jury in Buffalo would be impossible. They cited intense publicity and deep community trauma, and that many potential jurors would have ties to the victims or the store. Such ties can disqualify jurors, potentially reducing diversity in the jury pool. Courts balance local justice with the defendant's right to an impartial jury. High-profile cases have moved before. The judge has not yet ruled here. Prosecutors maintain a fair jury can be seated in Buffalo through careful selection. Online, social media became a sprawling, real-time chronicle, a space for collective grief, calls to action, and vigorous debate. My heart is in Buffalo tonight, holding the families of the victims in the light. Arguments over capital punishment intensified online. Short explainers broke down motions and venue debates. Local voices offered on-the-ground perspectives, corrected misinformation, and shared updates. Misinformation spread quickly, but reporters and officials pushed back. Online reaction echoed societal tensions, reflecting both empathy and division. Amid the noise, dignity and grief remained the central truths. Names before numbers, lives woven into a city's fabric. Behind the motions, court dates, and constitutional arguments lies a profound and deeply personal human tragedy. 10 people went to the Tops Market on a routine Saturday afternoon and never came home. Their lives were not statistics in a case file. They were pillars of their families and communities. It is essential to remember them as the vibrant individuals whose lives were stolen by an act of calculated hate. Celestine Chaney, 65, a loving mother and grandmother who had survived breast cancer, known for her infectious laugh. Roberta A. Drury, 32, a kind soul who moved to Buffalo to support her brother through his cancer treatment. Andre McNeil, 53, was there simply to buy a birthday cake for his 3-year-old son. Catherine "Cat" Massey, 72, a fierce community advocate and writer who had recently penned a letter calling for stronger gun laws. Margus D. Morrison, 52, a dedicated school bus aide, was just picking up snacks for a family movie night. Hayward Patterson, 67, a beloved church deacon, was selflessly helping someone load groceries into their car. Aaron Salter Jr., 55, a retired police officer and the store's security guard, heroically confronted the shooter, saving lives. Geraldine Talley, 62, an expert baker known for her famous cheesecake and a dear friend to many in her circle. Ruth Whitfield, 86, the cherished matriarch of her family, had just visited her husband in a nursing home. Pearl Young, 77, a substitute teacher who ran a local food pantry for 25 years, feeding anyone in need. Their loss left an unfillable void, a wound carved into the heart of their families and the entire community fabric. The store itself was remodeled and reopened, a necessary step for a neighborhood lacking other options, but the psychological scars remain deep. The tragedy reignited urgent national debates on the poison of white supremacist ideology, the mechanics of online radicalization, and the responsibility of digital platforms. It also escalated conversations about gun laws, particularly regarding access to high-capacity magazines and assault-style weapons. In Buffalo, the attack spurred an outpouring of support, with new investments in mental health resources and food security as neighbors rallied to support neighbors. Now, with key motions denied and a federal trial set for 2025, the nation awaits the next chapter in the pursuit of justice. The long road ahead is the law's attempt to answer an act of unspeakable hatred, with the 10 victims and their legacies forever at the center of the story. Ahead, what a capital trial really entails. A capital trial is more rigorous and longer than a non-capital case. Voir dire can take months to seat 12 jurors and alternates who are death qualified, meaning they can consider both life and death as possible punishments. Both sides continue filing motions, exchanging evidence, and refining strategy. The firearms counts remain part of the indictment, strengthening the federal case. The specter of a capital sentence will loom over every step of the proceedings. This case will remain a focal point in our discourse about racial hatred, online extremism, gun laws, and the morality of capital punishment. Inside the courtroom, families carry the weight of memory and the hope for accountability. With a trial scheduled for September 8, 2025, the next chapter approaches. As proceedings continue, may the names and stories of the 10 remain at the center of the narrative. The court has spoken, and the path, for now, is clear. Part 2. Next, the venue ruling, jury selection, and federal trial coverage. For the families, for Buffalo, and for the country, this remains an unyielding path to federal justice.